Thank you for being here. I know you have many choices, and that's one of the beautiful things about cruising. There's so many things you can do. Right now, sunning on deck 11 is probably not one of them, but I'm glad that you're here. We are going to talk about Copenhagen, and the title of this talk is Copenhagen More Than Just a Mermaid. You heard the captain earlier this morning talk about, as we're coming into Copenhagen tomorrow, one of the most iconic features is its mermaid, its 4-foot-tall statue. But there's a whole lot more to Copenhagen than that. I hope you have a chance to go by and see it if you haven't seen it already, but still there's plenty more. So who am I? Some of you have been here before, so this will be a little bit of a rehash. My name is Stuart. I live in Boise, Idaho in the United States. I'm an author, a traveler, a speaker. I've got several books, 6 books published, a couple more coming out in another month. I have flown a ton. No real badge of courage is my million-mile card that I have from an airline, but it just says I've traveled a lot, but I also love cruises. One of the real beautiful thing about cruises, and maybe why many of you are here as I've talked with you, are the places you're able to go. The fantastic ports we've been to already, getting to Germany with the opportunity to go into Berlin, the capital, to go to Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, Helsinki, the capital of Finland, St. Petersburg, which used to be the capital of Russia, Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, and tomorrow we'll be in Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark. You can't do that any other way. So the cruising, the places you can go, the ports, and the pace. I've been on plenty of tours where it's pack up every other day. Grab your suitcase. Anybody miss having to live out of a suitcase, or it's like put it away and you're done, and that's great. So that's why I really love being on cruises. So Copenhagen, it is the capital of Denmark. This is its coat of arms. And you heard the captain say about 1.2 million. It's definitely the most populous city in Denmark. And it consists of 2 islands, Zealand and Amager. So the natural question is, Zealand. I think I've heard of Zealand before, right? Maybe a new one, as in New Zealand. We have some New Zealanders here. Lovely to have you here. Thank you for coming this far. It is one of the world's best cities for living. High quality of life, very environmental. The water is clean. The port water is very clean, even for swimming. I've been in many ports, and I look at the water, and it's like, wow, I hope I don't have to jump overboard. But Copenhagen is just absolutely fantastic. As Steve said earlier, certainly Tivoli Gardens, we'll talk about that, and the Little Mermaid statue, and much, much more. So where is Copenhagen? So this is actually kind of a close-up picture. This is the smaller island, Amager, and this is just Copenhagen. It's part of the larger Zealand island. The airport is right here. We'll be docking about right here, and the Little Mermaid is just about right in this area here. You've heard about the Öresund Bridge connecting Malmö, Sweden, which is about here. The bridge goes to here. Then there's the man-made island, and then the tunnel. So when we came through, I don't know how many days ago it was, but quite a few days ago, we came through this sound here. I wish I had taken that picture of the Öresund Bridge, but I didn't. I borrowed that picture, but it is a delightful bridge. I've been under it once, and that is just a fantastic view also. It's not in the EU zone. It's not really part of the EU. It maintains its anonymity, and which is really kind of interesting as you look at this pale green here. This is all EU countries, but they're not. So the interesting thing too about the flags, if you've noticed about the Scandinavian flags, it's, if you stand this, if you flip this 90 degrees, you'll see basically you have a white cross sitting in a red background. And you'll notice that in the Scandinavian countries. That's how their flags are designed. Who remembers the colors for Finland? Anybody remember the color for Finland? You want to shout it out? No. That was black was the Talon. Yeah, Finland, it's blue and the white. And then Sweden, blue and yellow, yeah. I'm half Swedish, so I better know that one. It's currency that uses the Danish kroner. And a lot of people have asked me, well, okay, the Danish kroner, can I use my Swedish kroners? No. No, they're kroners, but they're not the same thing. Kroner is just is the local word for crown. And the currency came about because of the crowns for the royalty and for the kings. But they do have kroners available down at the guest relations desk. I anticipate that you could also in town use euros, probably US dollars. Exchange rate might be, you know, fairly close. If you're not buying a whole lot, that little difference probably won't matter a whole lot. In established stores, and by established stores, what I mean are not the open air markets. Kind of as you've heard your tour guides say in the other places, it's okay to use your credit cards in the established stores. They're legitimate. You don't need to worry about that. The small little shops, I would use cash. Even though it's not part of the EU zone and does not use the euro, its currency, because you saw where it is so surrounded by euro countries. It really, its currency is pretty much pegged to it. It stays pretty flat, and over a period of about 5 years, I mean, this might look like there's fluctuations, but these are such small numbers. Fluctuation's been less than 0.5% over a 5-year period, so you know, it stays fairly constant with the euro. Take a quick look at some of the currency, the coins. They design, as many countries do, they design their coins in a way that even sight-impaired people can tell. So it's by size, some have holes, some don't, by thickness, and even by the milling around the edge. Some are perfectly smooth, some are completely milled, some are half smooth, half milled. So it's a very smart way. And then the notes are very, very colorful. And I didn't have the 100 up there, but I do have a picture to show that they don't keep with the same design all the time as some countries. I'm not going to mention which ones. I live in the U.S., but anyway, as some countries do. But this is the note that I just got today down from guest relations, and this is one that a copy that I had found online, and so they do change quite frequently. The exchange rate is about 6 kroners to a US dollar, 7 to the euro. So if you just want to get a rough idea when you're in town, as you're shopping, you're looking for things, is this a value or not? As I said, it's about 6 to 1 or about 7 to 1 for the euro. A very high gross domestic product per capita, 7th in the world, which sounds really good. But as you find out in the Scandinavian countries, they do have a very high GDP, but then their tax burden, and that burden is not meant as a negative here. That's just what it's called, the tax burden. It is pretty high too. It's almost 50%. But they've considered going to the euro. But then these crises come up. We've seen what happened with Greece, with things in Spain, and so they're really kind of hesitant to do that because they understand that once they make that shift, then they're committed to it. So they're being very, very hesitant on that one. And their inflation rate's been pretty low. It had been around 3.4% for a 30-year period, but it has really dropped. And I've not been able to find out what was the real reason for that. Well, let's get back to Copenhagen here. So this, and I've talked with AV, we don't know why this is not coming up as clear as it should be, but the idea is that our ship will be docked up in this area. As far as walking, it's a long walk. It's a fair amount of walk, but I'm guessing that there's going to be some shuttle buses available if you're not choosing to take one of the tours, or if you have some extra time, because we do. But we've got the Little Mermaid up here. The Royal Palace is in this direction. At House of Parliament, a National Museum, another museum, and then right here, this area is Tivoli. This dividing body of water here divides Zealand from Amager, and this area right here is called Christianshaven. Okay, so the Little Mermaid. Let's talk about her. I mean, I have nothing against her. But I want people to know that there is a whole lot more in Copenhagen than her. She's definitely a very, very famous. We've all seen the photos of her based on the fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen. And so people have asked me about, well, can we go see his house? I don't know if his house, I don't believe it's even there, but there is an HCA museum, Hans Christian Andersen Museum. So how did he get to be so famous? Well, Carl Jacobsen, the son of the founder of the Carlsberg Brewery, commissioned this a little over 100 years ago. He wanted that as a symbol of the beauty and of the ocean and the nature of their livelihood. Sculpted in bronze, and he was secretly in love with this one particular ballerina, Ellen Price. And he wanted her to be the model. He says, sure, I'll model for it. So they did the head, and then it's like, but you now need to be nude. And she drew the line. Good for her. I was happy for that. Well, no, I wasn't happy for it. I wasn't around in 1909. But anyway, so the sculptor's wife posed for the body. So it's really, it's a combination. And, you know, personally, when I see things like this, I don't really look to see, oh, is that some particular person? To me, it's generally a representation, and I think that that's perfectly fine. In 1913, it came out, but it hasn't been an easy life for her. It's been damaged many times, but they keep restoring it. The Danes are pretty resilient. In 1964, someone cut off her head. Fortunately, they were able to make a new one and put it on. Right arm was cut off. And that's really kind of tragic, because that's kind of, I mean, there's a lot of support right here, but that's also part of the support. And they never got that head. Or the arm, they got it back. Someone tried to cut off the head. She was decapitated. It was blasted into the water with explosives. People have poured paint on her. And then several times in protest for women's rights in the Muslim arena, they've dressed her in Muslim attire. Well, but is she the real one? No. She's a copy. Kind of like if you go to Florence, Italy, and you see the statues of David up in Piazzale Michelangelo, and then down in by Palazzo Vecchio. Those are copies. I don't want to call them fakes. They're copies. They're official copies. And the one in Palazzo Vecchio, the interesting thing is, the real statue stood there for a couple hundred years, was just out there in the weather. And then finally they decided, you know, maybe we should move this thing inside. And so then they created another one, put out there. But she's always been a copy, the one that's been available. And there are other copies out there in various places, even one at the grave of actor Victor Borge in Hollywood. But the original is hidden somewhere. The heirs are not disclosing, of course, where it is. It's under copyright, so sometimes there's some legal issues. And 6 years ago, they voted, but it still hasn't been really taken up, to move her farther out. Because she is. You walk along the harbor, and then you walk down some steps, and right there. And they kind of get tired of people climbing on her, and like, then don't put her there. So they're talking about moving her. First time she's ever really moved was in Shanghai. In 2010. She was over there for 4 or 5 months for a particular exposition. So that was nice to allow other people in the world to see her. All right, well, let's move. Remember we said that ship, the Little Mermaid, and then the Royal Palace, Amalienborg. It is the official residence, but it wasn't there for the longest period of time. But a nearby castle, which was the official residence, caught fire a couple hundred years ago. Decided that, well, that's not very good. Let's move to someplace else. So they moved to this massive complex here, and again, right near the water. One of the big things, as in many royal areas and countries, is the changing of the guard, and it happens every day at noon. And depending on whether the royal family is there, is the type of clothing that you'll see the guards wearing. Because they're not always there, even though that's the official residence, they're not always there. Now, unlike in the United States, if the president is at home, quote unquote, he's in the White House. Maybe someday she will be in the White House. I don't know. But in these other countries where they have multiple palaces, they could be living in any one of them. As you saw in St. Petersburg, if you recall, Catherine the Great, she had her winter palace, which is now the Hermitage Museum. She had her other house out in Pushkin, and so they moved all around. So the royals are not always there. And so here you see a brighter garb, the red with the blue pants. That indicated that the royal family was there. And it is quite a delight. I have a feeling, given that these young children have the flags, that it's probably a school group that is there. So life along the canals. I enjoy that particular aspect of Copenhagen because it's a nice way to take a tour because you're sitting and you're not walking, and you're seeing some of the other parts that you might not see, kind of like with Amsterdam. The canals are not as pervasive as in Amsterdam, but they are there, and it is a great little tour. So Nijhaven was built basically to allow water to come into New King Square back in the 1600s, and that being the central part and the central hub of the port activity. If you kind of think back to the stereotypical sailor days, it was quite a lively scene. It's lively today, but the act has been cleaned up a bit. And so here's a photo there. This one is the same area, but it's at nighttime, and so they light up and they get pretty festive, and shooting from a different angle in the wintertime. And yes, it freezes over there, the canals. Mainly they'll freeze over because they're not very deep. You'd say, well, if the Baltic hasn't frozen over, why would these? Well, it's not very deep, and so therefore the temperature can get a whole lot colder and freeze. Well, wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen. So in 1952, a movie that came out, and Danny Kaye, and that really kind of opened it up for the world to know a little bit more about Copenhagen, and the song has become its theme. Of course, it's a nice advertisement. Okay, Tivoli Gardens. The locals just call it the Old Garden. It's been there for almost 170 years, so it is an old garden. There's no question about that. Second oldest amusement park in the world. Um, but it's not the type of amusement park that we think of in the United States. I mean, it's not a Six Flags with, you know, these monstrous cyclone roller coasters and things like that. It has a few, but that's not the main purpose of it. It was a garden, and there are some amusement rides, but there's even a whole lot more than just amusement rides. There's lots of interesting characters. This particular Perrault, I've never been able to figure out what the particular kind of a ball right there on his chest, unless that means someone was shooting him with a musket. That one I've not figured out. And it has a short season. I mean, again, remember where we are. This is not Disneyland. This is not Florida where it's sunny all year round. So they take advantage of it when they can from April to September. But they have a lot of visitors, 4 million visitors a year. That's a lot. I like this. Now, this was a builder who was pretty smart. Went to the king and said, "King," well, I don't know the exact words, but let's just kind of play along here. "King, hey, I have an idea. You know how people are kind of getting upset at the politics and everything going on? You know, when they're having fun, then they don't think about politics. Isn't that a good idea?" "Oh, okay, sure, anything so they're not thinking about politics and, you know, want to rebel against the king. What a great way to get land to build this." So the fireworks in the park. As I said, there's not a lot of rides. There's only 28 rides, but a lot of restaurants and food stands. And it's also a really active part of the culture scene because it has been there so long. It's not like open up a brand new concert hall or something and get people to come in. So it's been there for a long time, so there are a lot of activities that do go on. The Pantomime Theater, and I've got a picture of the front curtain. The front curtain takes 5 men to open. It's shaped like a peacock's tail, so it has to, you know, open up. It looks like, just like a peacock. And Walt Disney, and I found this quote. He said, "Disneyland will never be finished as long as there is imagination left in the world." So he had heard about Tivoli, and it says, as long as there's still imagination in the world, you know, Disneyland will never be finished. And there's some boy guards that are dressed in the garb similar to the Royal Danish Guards, just a musical ensemble that's there. So this is a pantomime theater, and it's in an Oriental setting, and if you can, it might actually on the sides show up a little bit clearer. This is the peacock, and then like the peacock's tail. That is the curtain that opens up. So there's a lot of museums. Again, here's where our ship is going to be. Our ship will be right in this area. So close by is the Danish Aquarium. So if you're interested in going there with some of your free time, there's a saltwater aquarium where you can actually pick up some of the animals that live there in the Øresund. You remember the Øresund is that sound that's between Denmark and Sweden. A couple museums. There's the Botanic Gardens, and one of the things that's really fascinating about this is I would call this one of the largest hothouses in the world. I mean, with all the glass. Again, think about the season and the seasons that they have for growing things. It's very short, but if you can start them earlier, before the sun is starting to do its natural work, or keep them after the sun has gone away for the winter, then you're able to keep things alive and beautiful a lot longer. There's a geological museum. This particular picture is of some crystals from Tasmania, Australia. So it's not just all local. They will have, as museums, as art galleries, they have things from all over the world. So is the Geological Museum. Then there's a circus museum. This, for those, if you have grandkids with you or children, this would be something that I would recommend. And as I was talking about right before we got started, This is one that is open on Sunday, so it's open tomorrow. So that would be a fantastic thing. They have activities for the children to do, walking on tight ropes, doing some magic, costumes to put on. So that would be an interesting thing for children. Natural history, there's natural history museums, science and technology, Royal Danish Naval Museum, 10,000 years of cultural history. There are museums, as we have found with most of the places where we've gone. All right. Now, what were the two islands? Who can tell me again the two islands? No Dane, though, but... Okay, what are you saying here? Zealand, yes? Amager, yes, good job. Very good. All right. Now, while many of the official parts are on Zealand, Amager also has some great things. Number one, it's got the primary airport. So if you don't have Amager, you're not flying into Copenhagen. So you want that. It also has the Øresund Bridge. And the Øresund Bridge, they could have built a complete bridge all the way rather than stopping on this man-made island that was built specifically for it and then doing a tunnel. But they also did not want to interfere with the traffic, primarily the air traffic that's flying into Copenhagen. So that's why it's the tunnel that comes out there near the airport. An interesting church we'll take a look at, and as I said, the Navy Museum is there. Well, this is called Church of Our Savior, and similar to the importance of the Church on the Spilled Blood in St. Petersburg, that this particular church is for Copenhagen. It was interesting. One of the interesting things about it is the spiral staircase that's on the outside. So if you feel like you want to go to the top, if you're brave, you want to walk to the top and get some really fantastic views, you can do that. I don't know if they charge a fee. I'm going to guess that there is a fee for it. But you can do this. Now, one of the fallacies, one of the stories that came out, one of the myths, was that the designer of this particular spire, after it was built, the king came to him and said, "It's going in the wrong direction." Notice the way it goes up. It circles up that way. Well, it was supposed to have circled the other direction. So the myth is that the designer climbed to the top and leaped to his death. Oh, what a beautiful story. It's not true. So, as it turns out, the spire wasn't even built until 50 years after the church was built. But still, it's pretty old. The church itself is over 300 years old, and it has the largest carillon in Northern Europe. Okay, history or vocabulary. Who knows what a carillon is? Anybody want to yell it out? Yell it loudly. Bells, yeah, a set of bells. You're right. And this is the largest one in all of Europe, in this little area. So I think that's pretty impressive. So we should be able to hear it while we're there, especially when we're there on Sunday. I would expect that no matter where you are in the city, unless you're inside a building, especially at noontime, you should be able to hear it. So that would be an absolute delight. I looked at some statistics, and Denmark actually has only 23, but its density, the actual number really isn't critical, but it's a comparison here. The U.S., okay, yeah, we've got 164, but look at this comparison. Denmark, compared to area, has about 30 times more per area than the U.S. But then the Netherlands, that has the absolute most carillons, and look at its density, almost 8 times even Denmark. I don't know if you have any carillons near where you are. There's a fairly new, large Catholic church near where I live. and they play the bells, and it's not always religious. On the 4th of July, they were playing some patriotic music. It's just nice to hear. I think it is. Okay. There's a lot in Copenhagen, and so I just wanted to give you just a kind of a quick picture of some of the things. What I want to do right now is just give you a little bit of a recap of some of my talks that I've already given in case you've missed them. And I understand there's plenty of activities going on, and I can't go over them now, but if you see me on the ship, don't hesitate to, I have a lot of people stop me. Don't hesitate to stop me. But the first one we did was Sweden, ABBA Queen. Yeah. Linda, the port lecturer, who has a talk tonight at 8 o'clock, she said, I love ABBA. That's okay. I love ABBA. Then we talked about Finland when we went into Helsinki. We can almost hear Finlandia. Here it goes. There it goes. And then opulent St. Petersburg. So then today this. Now what we have coming up in a couple of days, well, we'll get to that. But just quick show of hands. What favorite place we've been to? Favorite thing we've done so far on this cruise? Just cruising? Who's enjoyed that the absolute most? Okay. What about Germany? Okay, maybe your arms aren't working today. Sweden? Yay, Svenska flicka. Huh? Yeah, love it. Okay, Helsinki. A couple of them back there. That's okay. 2 arms count. That works. How about St. Petersburg? Oh, wow. Yeah, 2 days was nice, wasn't it? 2 days, and you only need about 2 more months, and you could really see it all. Estonia? Oh, that's great. The nice thing I like about Estonia is you don't have to be there for a major amount of time to really see the great history, the great culture. The pride that they have, the limited natural resources, and yet what they're able to do. And I guess you're not going to be able to know if Denmark was your favorite yet, will you? I'll have to talk to my editor about that one. Hey, editor, take that one out. Okay, that's done. That'll be taken out. All right, you can't see this. And I lured you down here for some handouts, and then I got so busy, I never got handing them out. I've got some copies of the Danish currency if you want to look at them. I also have cards here. What I've been doing is handing out cards at each one of my talks. One side that you can't see at all has words, 2 or 3 words in 9 different languages. I always feel that if you can say a couple of words in the local language, you really show the people that you care about their culture. You don't have to become fluent, but just say a couple of words, please, thank you. So I have those, and then on the back I have one of my travel tips that I tell people about. But in case you did miss any of them, these cards, and I've got card 4 because this is talk 4. I've got that today. We'll hand out. We'll get them out there, or if anybody wants to just even come up and get some and start passing them out down the aisles, that'd be great. But on the last sea day, which will be in 2 more days, as we're going through that beautiful, peaceful North Sea that hopefully is not going like this, I'll have all of the cards available, and so in case you miss them, you can get all 5. And that particular talk will be called Baltic Beauty Remembered. It'll be about the beautiful Baltic. Plus, it'll be a little bit of a recap, just a quick little recap of some of the places that we've been. So I'd like to say, talk. Again, that's one word that I believe, thank you, you should be able to speak in wherever you go in the local language. Reminder that today at 2:45, so that will be in about another 40 minutes, 50 minutes, Karen Dodd will be right in here talking about peasants and knights, swans and swallows. And that says that march with the knights of the Crusades and the peasants of Russia in this enriching look at the lands and cultures of the Eastern Baltic. So that'll be at 2:45 today. If you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain questions either right here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll get down there. For those that want to be able to get the cards, ask me any questions. I'll leave the mic on so that others can hear. Again, you see me on the ship at any time you want to